Okay, so we're going to talk about what we're doing in geometry. Ms. Schieler and I are co-teaching. So the original plan was that with the junior high implementing standards-based grading, that we were going to, I was going to try that with freshmen in Algebra 1, but with the scheduling and the way things worked out, we have 35 kids in our third hour geometry class. So we thought it'd be a good idea to co-teach and then implement this. And so we're also doing standards-based grading and flexible pacing class. And so we'll kind of speak on both components of those. And so with the flexible pacing, if you want, we can have some of these pass this around. We created a schedule kind of for the whole semester. And so this is just like our pace that we want the students to follow. Obviously, the point of being flexible is that they can go ahead of pace or, fall a little behind the pace. And so like this pace would be like the normal pace that we teach in front of everybody all the time. And lecture and then go through like a normal school year like we have in the past. But what this allows is that they can access their content online. It's the same content, everything's the same material, the same content, it's just delivered in different ways. So like if we recorded one of our lectures or something would be one example. They can watch that at any time. It's the same thing that we would have done if we had talked in front of all 25 of them or all 35. But they can watch it wherever they're at. So like if they're able to, or if they understood the previous concept before and they're normally, the students have to just wait until everybody's ready to move on to the next lesson with the teacher. Now they're able to move on whenever they're ready. And so we have like right now, currently kids are in all different spots right now. And so it's kind of chaotic in one sense, but it's also really organized because they know what they're supposed to do. And because the way we've laid it out for them is kind of put the responsibility on them is they know where they're at and they know where they need to be working on next. So yeah, progressions are here too. So like this is kind of what they work through. And so in these progressions, like this is one standard at the top that we're working on in geometry class. And then all the things that they need to do are below here. And so they kind of just know how to follow through that. We've kind of practiced with them and taught them how to go through a progression. And so I think more on flexible pacing.
That's pretty much it. So that takes us right into the standards-based grading side of it then. So as you can see on this progression, right, they choose one option to learn the topic. As you can see, a mini lesson, that would be us teaching them directly. I have yet to have anyone ask me for that, but it's always an option for them. Right, and then they also always have the option to just read their textbook because we know people learn in different ways. Then we have then down below, there's a choose one, and that's their practice option. For unit 2, that was my unit. I've kind of been in charge of it. And I tried to provide a paper option as well as a digital option for each step for them. And then after they complete one of each of those, they will take a lesson check, which is just like, it's a half sheet of paper. I should have brought some, but it's just a half sheet of paper. It just asks a couple, 2, 3, 4 questions on exactly what they learned.
Is that what we've done?
Yes. Similar.
Yeah. So, and then we get that turned around generally by the next class period so that they know exactly if they did it. If they didn't do it right, then they get it back and they can fix it by looking back at their notes and looking back at, and maybe even doing another learn or another practice if they need to. So that's kind of how we do that. We enter grades for their practice and their lesson check. So they get 2 grades for every level that they do. So by the end, they have 6 to 8 grades. And then at the end of the whole unit, so a lot of kids are getting towards the end of unit 2 now. We had 6 pathways that they worked through that look just like this. And so then they'll have a big unit test, kind of like your old chapter test, right? It kind of has all of those things. And we have each of the levels on that assessment. So then they'll get a level for each standard that they've done this unit. It took a little bit of learning at the beginning because obviously for geometry specifically, a lot of it's brand new. So right away, everyone was starting at a level 1. And so grades were a little scary because it does translate in PowerSchool to just your standard grade. So that was a little nerve-wracking for some initially, but so every time they start a new standard, their grade dips a little bit because they're at a level 1. But as they work through the progression, right, it comes back up to that level 3, which is that B, and then a level 4 would be an A.
So what's a hard learning point of that one going in right away is like, that's just where they're at right now. And of course, in Power School, being in the high school, it has to translate to a D. And so when you first put those ones in, they kind of freak out. They're like, oh, I have a D, or they're used to being a D and being a bad grade. But the 1 is just where you're at right now. And so as they work through to get the 2s, now their grade is now at a C or whatever, translates to a C. But they're starting to learn that it's just the 1, then they work to a 2, and their goal is to get that 3 at minimum. And so I think they're starting to understand that, but some of them still still freak out because they're used to that letter grade. D is not a good grade, but that's still a work in progress right now.
And overall, I think the co-teaching has really helped. Some kids prefer his teaching style. Some kids prefer my teaching style. So it's really nice that the 2 of us are teaching this together. So if a kid's struggling with me, they can go ask Schneider or vice versa. And so that's been really nice to see.
Because you guys are in the same class at the same time, or you have to do
So we're still in our 2 rooms just because neither of our rooms is really big enough for 35 kids to function well. But we have kids moving between our rooms quite often, and they can ask either of us questions.
And these are sophomores?
Yes.
And so they had standards-based grading when they were in elementary school. And then they've been away from it for 3 years, right? Okay. And this is their first time back with it.
Right. Okay. Other questions?
It's really neat to go in their rooms because some of you have been in there, but you see these kids, like, you think they're wandering around, but they're so engaged. Like, I can go up to the kids and ask them a question. They can tell me exactly what they're working on. I'll say, well, what are they doing? Oh, well, they're doing a lesson with Mr. Schneider, so they don't really seem to be disturbed by the others doing. They're just doing their, and they know what they're doing, and the power in that for those kids to be able to control that.
So they're sophomores, and will they be taking, they'll be taking the state assessment when?
Oh, good question. Yes.
In the spring. So we might see we'll see how they score there. And then some of them, will any of them take ACTs as sophomores? Not till juniors.
And they're teaching to the standards. So those are the standards that are going to be on the NDSA. So there's not going to be that disconnect. They're teaching those standards, and the NDSA is built off of those North Dakota standards.
And in your progressions, you're mentioning the textbook. So we do have textbooks, either paper or online textbooks. Which do we have both? Do we have?
We have options.
Okay. And does the textbook align well with our state standards?
We made the adjustments that it needs.
Yeah. You use the sections that apply to our
Correct.
standards.
Right. Yeah, we're not just marching through the textbook. Yeah.
And the kids understand that. We're not just starting at the beginning and going to the end. You do everything.
Right.
No, you do what it says right here.
Right.
Pages 120 to 123. That's where you go to figure this out.
Yeah. And we do have a few that choose the textbook.
And you mentioned IXL on here. Tell us a little bit about IXL.
So IXL is an online platform that provides practice. There's math, English. I know Spanish uses it a lot.
social studies and 4x6.
Perfect. But
You didn't know that?
sorry. Basically, it allows the kids to answer practice questions, and it immediately tells them if they're right or wrong as soon as they hit the submit button.
Gives them a really good synopsis. If they get it wrong, it
Right.
walks them through the steps that they would need to take to get it right.
The only thing is we gotta find the programmers and redo that. If you get a question wrong, you get sent back 4 or 5 questions.
It's true, yeah. It's a little uneven, but earning and losing
Sounds
points.
like you've experienced. Yeah.
But yeah, we don't use it all the time, especially with geometry. It's good for some things, it's not great for other things, so we pick and choose when we use it.
So I know one of the concerns, is okay, Patrick, go ahead.
Yeah, please.
So one of the concerns on our survey that we sent out to parents was a big concern was that there are, 4s are not available, right? They can't get A's, but is that true?
No, of the 6 progressions I had, I think there was only 2 that didn't have a level 4. And obviously that would be something moving forward that we would try to build in.
Can I clarify too that a 4 would be an A plus,
Right.
100%, a 3.5 would be an
Oh,
A.
3.5.
So if they don't correlate to a 4.0 as a 4 on their progression or on their mark. So just so everybody understands that, that's the difference.
Yeah, one nice thing with our like flexible pacing, because kids are at different spots, you see some kids really helping out other kids. And so we've been giving 3.5s to those kids because they are going above and beyond, and they're trying to help others. So.
Well, I have always thought that's the best way to learn is to try to teach someone else, because you have to figure out how, a new way. That's maybe not the way they learned it best, but then they can figure out another way to teach someone else that really reinforces it in their brain. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? If not, thank you for your excellent work and your presentation. Looking forward to next month. And what pillar was this?
Well,
Or
this is
multiple pillars?
kind of a combination of pillars, yeah. The model.
All right, thank you. All right,